It's time for the Newsmaker Show on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA. Here's Kevin Torrance.
And bringing in the studio today, Dr. Robert Heinemann, Alfred University Professor of Political Science. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Heinemann.
Well, it must be Friday then, huh, Brian?
Seems to be.
All right. I'm here to talk with you a bit.
Well, Dr. Heinemann, here on the anniversary of September 11th, we found out on September 10th that the House Republicans are abandoning the idea of voting against the Iranian deal, though it looks like the Senate's still going to do that. Your thoughts?
Well, I think the House is looking at the role of procedure in the congressional process. And I think a lot of our listeners really aren't aware that procedure plays a tremendously important role in Congress, so that many proposals and issues are voted through up or down, often down, through procedural votes that simply don't concentrate on the substance of the issue. And that's exactly what seems to be happening here with the Iranian agreement. So first and foremost, if they wait 60 days, it goes into effect with whether Congress acts or if Congress does not act. But I think has the House a little bent out of shape is that it looks like the procedural vote in the Senate will prevent a vote in the Senate on the issue itself. And that procedural vote will involve the issue of the filibuster. So that, as you know, you probably know this, Brian, that you can kill a bill in the Senate by taking the floor and just talking and talking and talking.
Going on and on and on.
That would be a filibuster. And the only way you can stop a filibuster in the Senate is to get 60 votes to impose what is known as cloture. And if you don't have 60 votes, you can't stop these people from talking. And this past week, President Obama has picked up support from 2 or 3 other Democrats, so that he has 42 Democrats, I think, at this point, who say they support the Iranian agreement, and obviously will vote to prevent cloture from being imposed. That means that the vote is dead. They won't be able to vote on it, period. And, of course, congressmen like the ability to kill things of this sort without ever going on the record having to vote for or against. And that's probably what has the House bent out of shape. I think probably a lot of members of the House are thinking, why should we stick our necks out on this when the Senate clearly is not going to? They'll just prevent a cloture vote, which will prevent the filibuster from coming to an end, and at which point McConnell will, I think, just give it up. And so the Senate will basically kill it without ever actually voting on it. And I think I'm a member of the House. I'm saying to myself, why should I stick my neck out at this point when the Senate certainly is not?
This is something, the Iranian deal, something that Congressman Tom Reed is very much against?
Yes. Yeah. Well, he's entitled to his opinion. But the point is, he may not get a chance to vote one way or another, and I guess he probably is not going to get too bent out of shape if he doesn't get a chance to vote.
On the topic, Dr. Heinemann, I'm sorry, you're going to say something?
Well, it's possible after the 60 days the House could vote up or down. It'd be meaningless, but it would give them a chance to register their approval or disapproval. I don't know what will happen there, but go ahead.
On the topic of the House of Representatives, Congressman Mark Meadows says that a lot of people in the House want to dump Boehner.
Well, I don't think Boehner cares much one way or another at this point. As you know, I tend to support Boehner on most of his positions. He has a very difficult job there trying to hold all these guys together. And frankly, I think if you get one of these more conservative members as Speaker of the House, it probably will hurt the Republicans in the elections next year. The Boehner is very adept at smoothing over a lot of these ideological cleavages in the House among his members. I mean, you got some real nut-click cases running loose there in the House, and to let them get in a position of some kind of power, I think would hurt the Republican. It would be like putting Donald Trump in charge of, the House of Representatives.
Speaking of Donald Trump.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wanted to get your take. Trump and Ben Carson. Dr. Ben Carson came out this week and said that he believes that Donald Trump is not much of a believer and does not have much faith. Does a statement like that help or hurt Trump and Carson? How's that play out?
Well, I think Carson is pretty accurate in his statement. I think Carson's pretty clear on his pretty deep faith. I think he's correct. I think Trump has really no faith at all. And I don't know, what religion he claims. But at one point in one of the Christian groups, I think he was asked whether he'd ever asked forgiveness of the Lord, and he said no, he never had, because I guess he feels he really doesn't have to. No, I think the guy is such a narcissist, and I can't get that word quite right. I need
narcissist.
Narcissist. That's good. Thank you very much. Kevin tried to help me on that, but narcissist. He's such a narcissist that the idea that he would have faith or have a need for faith is simply beyond the man. And I think Carson has put his finger on that, and I think that in the long run is going to hurt Trump a lot. And as you know, and I think Carson's beginning to ramp things up against Trump, and I think the next debate, as I mentioned before, I think Carson's going to take him on in a rather, I guess I would say, a bleak, reasonably subtle fashion, which will probably go right over Trump's head of hair. No, I think Carson's on the move. I don't think there's any question about that. And Trump's latest comments about Carly Fiorina and how why would you allow someone with a face like that to be president, frankly, continues to show his utter disregard for any sense of courtesy and I think his real antipathy toward women after his treatment of Megyn Kelly and the point that she made, 5 or 6 really miserable comments that he had made about women. Can you imagine what this guy is saying to his buddies on the side about people? I mean, it's just this guy has no place in the Republican Party.
Dr. Heinemann, on the topic of notable women, the county clerk down there in Kentucky.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What do you think there?
Well, I think that the judge made a bit of a fool of himself. I think it was a male judge. Made a fool of himself by creating a martyr there and throwing her in jail. I think there were various ways of dealing with that without this kind of treatment. The idea of St. Paul and some of these other guys ending up in jails all over the Middle East while they're preaching the gospel. And now he takes this woman and tosses her in jail. Come on. And Huckabee, of course, pounced right on it.
He said he'd go to jail for Kim Davis there, Huckabee.
There you go. And he'll probably get a little bounce out of that, frankly. But on the other hand, let me say this. The county clerk was clearly in the wrong. If she wants to go against the law, then she should find another job. The law is pretty clear. And now, again, I'd have to look at the Supreme Court opinions on these gay marriage issues. I'm not certain the Supreme Court directly said that gay marriage is protected by the Constitution. But they certainly, the judge's interpretation was that. And, the law is the law. So in that sense, I think if the woman has serious religious problems with this, then she It's like Oliver Wendell Holmes many years ago in one of the cases involving a police officer in Boston who was fired. As Holmes said, the man has a right to freedom of speech, but he has no right to be a police officer. And in this case, she wants to support her religion, which she has every right to oppose gay marriage. I don't have a problem with that. But if she's going to be a county clerk, she has a right and she has an obligation to uphold the law.
Moving on to a woman on the other side of the political spectrum, Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Oh, yeah, one of my favorites among the Democrats.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the Democratic National Committee chair, closes door on more Democrat debates. She says no to that. Your thoughts on that, Dr. Heineman?
Well, first, I think she's delayed them till quite a bit later here. I guess I don't have a problem with 6 debates. I think there are some other issues involved there. First of all, clearly she is Hillary's supporter from start to finish. And that's a problem if she's going to be Democrat national chairman. But clearly she's going to do everything she can to help Hillary. And so they've delayed the debates, and now she's holding them down to 6, which, again, I don't have a problem with there. On the other hand, as you know, they're going to penalize Democrat candidates if they engage in debates other than the 6. I think that's a serious problem. I think the Clinton camp has to be spending one heck of a lot of time trying to figure out how they're either going to get out of these debates or how they're going to handle questions that you would think would come up during the debates. Now, again, if you get people like Candy Crowley and some of these people who are in the back pockets of the candidates to start with, maybe they'll give Hillary a pass, and they may try pretty hard to get moderators like that. I don't know how far that'll go. The other question that pops up, will Joe Biden participate in these debates?
That was my next question.
So that would be kind of interesting to watch. I think Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, it'll be reasonably interesting, but I don't think it'll be terribly informative. Bernie's not going to spend his time attacking Hillary. He's going to be pushing his agenda, which he's pretty clear on, and that's fine. And Hillary then will be stuck basically trying to answer a lot of pretty embarrassing questions, I would think, if the press does their job. But you throw Joe Biden in the mix, now you have another person who it's kind of awkward. Is he going to attack Hillary, or is she going to attack him? Are they going to try to distance themselves from each other on issues like Iran and Iraq and the Middle East? That would be kind of fascinating to watch those two dance around each other up there. And Joe is going to have to make up his mind here pretty soon in terms of whether he's going to run.
He says he's going to check it out with his family first.
I see. Mm-hmm.
By the way,
yes,
on Middle Eastern issues, do you have a sense of Biden's thoughts on, for example, the Iranian deal and its effect on Israel and things like that?
I don't really have much there. I think Biden is going to be a good soldier, and I think he will support Obama on that. Again, Kerry and these people make some very good arguments for the Iranian deal. So, in that sense, I think Biden will be on the Obama side, and I do think increasingly Obama is giving Biden more and more face time in terms of his appearances. So, in terms of if Joe wants to run, I think his chances of getting a lot of publicity and the opportunity to show himself doing important things, there are a lot of opportunities an incumbent can give somebody like that. On the other hand, we have to look at it in terms of history, and as we've said on this show before, in terms of vice presidents succeeding two-term presidents, Martin Van Buren was the last time that happened until George H.W. Bush. So this has only happened twice in the last, 150 years or so. So Joe would have to take that into consideration. On the other hand, Obama's broken a lot of historical precedents already, so it's not impossible that Joe could win the presidency. I would say it's not impossible by any means.
On the topic of Obama, how do you think he's doing here in the last years of his term here?
Well, I think he's accomplishing quite a bit, actually, for a lame duck president. And if he pulls off this Iranian deal, as he says, that's something will be historically important. And I think it will. Now, the opponents obviously think it's going to be historically a disaster. I obviously a little more sanguine about that. But also you have the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Pact, with these 14 nations surrounding China. I think if he gets that through, which I think he will, that's a very important step, too, in terms of kind of containing China and helping us economically. And I think also, the economy is thriving right now. The American dollar is very solid. I know the stock market is bouncing around all over the place right now, but that doesn't necessarily reflect by any means the health of the economy. So I think this last year, it really is quite amazing, all the heat the guy has taken and all the stumbling he has done from the beginning, that we're getting a halfway reasonable conclusion to his presidency. Now, hopefully no other big disasters pop up here, but the Chinese are visiting this week, and we'll see how that goes. But clearly the Obama administration is pretty unhappy with the Chinese right now, and that is another area that maybe we'll see some progress, maybe not.
Talking with Dr. Robert Heinemann, breaking now for Fox. Back in 60 seconds. On the Newsmaker Show with Dr. Robert Heinemann. Dr. Heinemann, somebody said this week, don't call them migrants in Europe, call them refugees. Your thoughts on the migrant crisis in Europe?
Yeah, well, I think refugees is a pretty fair statement on that. And I think what we have here is an example of the need for nation states and the destruction of nation states in the Middle East leading to this kind of crisis. And part of it goes right back in here was where Obama and Hillary Clinton really bear a lot of the responsibility. Listen, remember several years ago we were talking about an Arab Spring and how democracy was going to flourish in the Middle East. Well, take a look at it today, folks. And Hillary Clinton and Obama are key actors in that simple-minded view of how America can lead from behind. And you've got all these people now trying to get out, and you can't blame them a bit, trying to get out of the situation where there's no stability, where there's savagery actually on the part of a lot of these people, ISIS at the leader of that, but nonetheless, the others are pretty savage as well. I think as well, first of all, I don't think there are that many in terms of the size of Europe. Europe can incorporate these people without too much difficulty, but that it, in a kind of literal sense, I think will tend to change the complexion of the Europeans. They're obviously going to be a little darker complected, I think, than they are now. But there aren't enough of them really to make huge changes, as you have, for example, in a place like France, where I think 12-14% of the population today is Muslim now. But I do think Merkel's doing the right thing. I think she's trying to put together a constructive way of providing for these people. But the bottom line is, without nation states, these sorts of things, unfortunately, it puts people in unbelievably terrible, horrible circumstances.
We've been talking with Dr. Robert Heinemann. Dr. Heinemann, Pope's trip's coming up in a couple of weeks. Do you get any sense, and you know a lot of people in the Republican Party, do you get any sense that some of the more conservative leaders might, well, not necessarily snub, they probably wouldn't do that, but avoid the Pope because of the Pope's liberal stance on some issues? A lot of times people like to have their picture taken with him.
Oh, I don't know. I certainly had a chance to have my picture taken with the Pope. As a good, solid Lutheran, I'd be happy to do that. I don't know. The Pope is obviously driving some of the more conservative elements in the church bonkers. Probably not a bad thing. But he is certainly a lot more liberal than any of the previous popes, and a lot more liberal than a lot of the born-again evangelical Christians. But he seems like a very good man, and I don't know. I think
not expecting any incidents.
No, I think, frankly, religious toleration in this country would be a good thing, and I think to a great extent we have it. Yeah.
We've been talking with Alfred University Professor of Political Science, Dr. Robert Heinemann. Any final thoughts there before we go, Dr. Bob?
No, I guess I caution the listening audience not to get too tied up in all these polls and questions about what Donald Trump said about this person or that person. Somebody has to fill the airwaves 24/7, and so all this really refuse gets washed out onto the media. I think, I hope the audience will tend to deal with the more fundamental issues and see what the rest of this is all about. But I do think that we will have meaning given to American life this weekend with the opening of the NFL season and some real values, yes.
There we go, Dr. Robert Heinemann. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.